day, everybody. I hope that you're well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on phrases and clauses. Alright, so doing phrases and clauses, and we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 8, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of phrases and clauses. All right, so we're doing phrases and clauses. Our chapter is phrases and clauses. Our subject is English Language Arts, grade 8. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of phrases and clauses is it a phrase or clause? And to identify prepositional phrases, set 1 and set 2. All right. So when we look at phrases and clauses, right, we can say that a clause is a group of words and it contains both subject and it contains a predicate. A clause can function as a complete sentence or it can be combined with other clauses to form either compound or to form complex sentences. All right. So we're going to say, is it a phrase or a clause? And then we're going to identify prepositional phrases, set 1 and set 2. All right, so we said a clause is a group of words that contains both subject and a predicate. A clause can also function as a complete sentence or a clause can combine with other clauses to form either a compound or a complex sentence. All right, and if we look at an example, right, it says Samantha grew up in a bilingual family, so she can speak two languages fluently. All right, and if we look at an example, it says Samantha grew up in a bilingual family, so she can speak two languages fluently. And if we look at the description, it says a clause has a subject, which is she, and a predicate, so can speak two languages fluently. All right. If you look at another one, it says the Hall of Records, which is found behind Mount Rushmore, contains copies of historical United States documents. So we said that the Hall of Records, which is found behind Mount Rushmore, contains copies of historical United States documents. And if we look at that specific sentence, right, we can say that the clause has a subject, which is which, and a predicate is found behind Mount Rushmore. Right, so that is a clause, which is a group of words that contains both subject and it contains a predicate. Then we have a phrase. All right. All right. So we said that a phrase, right? So firstly, we said a clause is a group of words that contains both subject and predicate. But now a phrase, right? It is any group of words that functions together within a sentence, but it lacks sometimes a subject or lacks a predicate, or maybe both. For example, we wash the dishes in the sink after dinner. All right. So if we look at the phrase that it is a group of words and that functions together within a sentence but lacks either subject or predicate or maybe both. It says we wash the dishes in the sink after dinner. So we wash the i- dishes in the sink after dinner. So we wash the dishes in the sink after dinner. That's the example. So which means that the phrase in that sentence, right? All right. And if we look at another example, it would say the new physician at the hospital has been working long hours. All right. So we say that a clause is a group of words that contains both subject and predicate, whereas a phrase is a group of words that functions together in a sentence but lacks a subject, it lacks a predicate, or it lacks both subject and predicate. All right. So we are identifying or saying, is it a phrase or is it a clause? All right. And if you look at another example, right, of a phrase, it says Robert and Emily took detailed notes during the lecture on microbiology. All right. And remember, we say that a clause is a group of words that contains both a subject and a predicate, and it can function as a complete sentence or it can combine with other clauses, such as compound sentences, to form compound sentences or complex sentences. All right. And when it comes to phrases and clauses, right? All right. So we can say we can say that with a actually let's go to A plus classes, and there we will be able to do our activities, and we will be able to go over our test. So now we're going to say, is it a clause or a phrase? And we already said what a clause is, and we already said what a phrase is. A clause is a group of words that contains both subject and predicate, and a phrase is a group of words that functions together in a sentence but lack either subject or a predicate. So, in the first activity, we see that Mickey's suitcase was too large to fit in the overhead bin. So, unfortunately, she had to check in. So, Mickey's suitcase was too large to fit in the overhead bin. So unfortunately, she had to check in. And if we were to say if this is a phrase or clause, right, then we will say this is a clause. And the reason why this is a clause, because this is combining. It's there we have that so basically joins that two sentences. So the word so joins that two sentences. So Mickey's suitcase was too large to fit in the overhead bin. All right, if you look at the next one, it says although the terminology is evolving, a first year high school or college student is traditionally classified as a freshman, and a second year student is called a sophomore. Is it sophomore or sophomore? I'm not sure how to say it. So we need to say if that is a clause or if it is a phrase. All right. So a second year student is called a sophomore. That is what the emphasis is put on. And if we were to say if there is a phrase or a clause, right, then we will say it is a clause. So we will say that is a clause, which is that a second year student is called a sophomore. Sophomore or sophomore, I'm not sure. All right. And if we look at the next one, before we go to our test, it says the most successful advertising slogans are those that have the ability to endure, such as just do it or when you care enough to send the very best. All right. And if we look at this one, especially the one that is bold, that says the most successful advertising slogan, and if we were to look at that, then we can say that that is a phrase, right? It is a phrase, and we see the phrase is a group of words that functions together in a sentence, but it lacks either a subject or it lacks a predicate. So that is a phrase. All right, so now we're going to a test. We need to say is the group of words in both the group of words in bold, is it a phrase or a clause? It says inspirational leader Mohandas Gandhi, commonly known as Mahatma Gandhi, directed India's fight for independence against British rules. So, is this inspirational leader Mohandas Gandhi? Is that a phrase or is that a clause? So, inspirational leader Mohandas Gandhi, we need to say if this is a phrase or if it is a clause. All right, and if we were to select the correct one, we would say that it is just. All right, so phrase is correct. All right, so now is the group of words in bold a phrase or is it a clause? It says humans are classified as omnivores because they generally consume both plants and animals, although some people are vegetarians or vegans. So if we look at the words in bold, humans are classified as omnivores. Is that a phrase or is that a clause? All right, and if we were to choose the correct answer, we would say that, Let's say this is a clause because humans are classified as omnivores, full stop. So that is a clause. It's basically a clause is a complete thought that contains either a subject and a verb, whereas a phrase is just a group of words that modifies the subject and the object. All right, the next one says, is the group of words or in bold a phrase or a clause? It says, Haley has all the qualifications listed for the accountant position at the tax firm. So we now need to say if at the tax firm is either a phrase or if it is a clause. All right, and if we were to choose the correct answer, we will say at the tax firm is just a phrase. It is just a phrase. All right, so by refusing to surrender her seat to a white passenger, African American activist Rosa Parks inspired a boycott of city buses in Montgomery, Alabama, and helped strengthen the civil rights movements. So we need to say if that is a clause, African American activist Rosa Parks, or if it is a phrase. All right, and if we look at the those group of words, which is African American activist Rosa Parks, we can say it is a phrase. So it is a phrase. All right, let's do the last one. It says, is the group of words in bold a phrase or is it a clause? Although glaciers occupy only about 10% of the Earth's land surface, they contain about 75% of its fresh water. So, although glaciers occupy only about 10% of the Earth's land surface, they contain about 75% of its fresh water. So we need to say if the word in bold, which is they contain about 75% of its fresh water, we need to say if that is a phrase or if it is a clause. All right, and if we were to choose the correct option, which is they contain about 75% of water, fresh water, we can say it is a clause. All right. So now we're going to identify the prepositional phrases within that sentence. It says a prepositional comes before a noun or comes before a pronoun, which we call the object of preposition, and it connects it to the rest of the sentence, right? So a prepositional phrase is a phrase that begins with a preposition and it ends with the object of preposition, and it includes all of the object's modifiers in between. For example, it says, steam rose steadily from the enormous geyser. Steam rose steadily from the enormous geyser. All right, and if we look at that sentence, right, it says the preposition from it connects the object geyser to the rest of the sentence. That is why it says steam rose steadily from the enormous geyser, right? All right. The next one says Jonah's article about Alaskan oil drilling was incredibly well written. And if we look at that sentence and then the preposition about connects the object oil drilling to the rest of the sentence. So you need to remember that prepositions introduce nouns, they introduce pronouns, and they introduce noun phrases. They do not introduce infinite phrases or adverbial phrases. And one more example that says, it says, after the show, the dancers greeted their fans. So after the show, the dancers greeted their fans. So which means that yeah, after is a preposition and it connects the object show to the rest of the sentence. Right? All right, let's go to our test. We're going to select one prepositional phrase within this sentence. It says, in this introductory harmonica class, you will learn useful breathing techniques. Previous experience is not required. So we need to say what the prepositional phrase is. It in this introductory harmonica class or breathing techniques. All right. And we will select our prepositional phrase. The next one says select the one prepositional phrase. It says many people presume that Kansas is the flattest state in the nation, but Florida is actually flatter. So we need to select the prepositional phrase. Is it many people presume or in the nation? We need to select the correct one. So many people presume that Kansas is the flattest state in the nation, but Florida is actually flatter. And if we were to identify our prepositional phrase, in the nation. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on phrases and clauses. We said that a phrase is a complete thought and it contains a subject and it contains a verb, whereas a phrase is a group of words that modifies the subjects and the objects in sentences to provide extra information, but it is not a complete thought, right? So this is now the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade 8, for joining the class. And I really hope that you're going to have a good evening further. Goodbye.